USA podcast, and we put you on the map. This is Ron Costa, broadcasting live in the Mappable USA studios in Las Vegas. And today, as usual, we're going to talk about opportunity zones again. We're going to take a little sidetrack to this, and we're going to bring in one of the big-time opportunity zone people, Vicky Hachmala from the QOZ Marketplace. Vicky, how are you today?
I'm outstanding today, Ron. Everything's going good. Weather's perfect, and we have an excellent guest on our show today.
Yeah, there's a lot of movement in the opportunity zones. Today's guest is one of the real heavy hitters that is doing a lot of really good work in the industry. So without ado, let's bring on Jimmy Flores. Jimmy is the CEO of We Build. And Jimmy, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on, Ron.
My pleasure. Our pleasure. So Jimmy, you're out in Arizona, huh?
Yeah, I try to, keep cool, but when you're doing all this opportunities on development, you have to kind of step out and I guess enjoy the weather, right? The heat.
No question. Yes, exactly. You just got to deal with a couple of bad months in the desert parts of the country. But why don't we start by telling our audience a little bit about yourself and your background. I know you have a pretty interesting background. You've done a lot of entrepreneurial things.
Yeah. So, my background, I was an entrepreneur growing up, since I was 19 years old. I got into retail brick and mortar shops, started out here in Arizona, but expanded to various parts of the country, and including Canada. I was doing that for, about 5 to 7 years. And then I got into a real estate investment firm. I dabbled into custom technology integrations and processes for all my companies. And before Opportunity Zones, I really wanted to raise more money for startups backed by real estate in Phoenix because, Phoenix is a real estate-centric city, right? But then when Opportunity Zones came, it was almost like my prayers were answered because, that's essentially what it is, investing into businesses that are backed by real estate, potentially. So, I know about this industry, and I'm very excited to be part of it and help my community as much as I can.
What's really interesting right now about the Opportunity Zone Marketplace, which is relatively new, I would say, is that most of the projects, or a lot of the projects that seem to be really, really marketed well and good opportunities, are in the state of Arizona. So it's kind of cool when I look at some of these things that are online. Next thing I know, I see your name seems to be attached to all of them. So that's you're doing a good job.
Well, I'll tell you this: Arizona did a very good job with their zones. Our government here on the state side, they went ahead and were one of the first leaders to release the zones in the space, and they didn't just identify the zones from the state level. They let a lot of the economic developers in the municipalities identify what zones they want to go ahead and choose and why this zone versus that zone. And so Arizona was extremely prepared from all the way to the top, down to the bottom of the city side. And if you look at our zones, we have some low-income communities, but you'll find opportunity zones in downtown areas like Scottsdale, Phoenix, Tempe. So we have some pretty good zones here around Arizona.
Yeah, and when we went to the Opportunity Zone Expo about a month ago, we met and spoke with, I believe it was Governor Ducey, right? And he's the guy that really seems to be taking a charge on this, and listened to him speak, and he was real passionate about things. What I really liked about what he was talking about was the fact that they want to move projects forward, and it's not so much let's red tape this and keep this in development and all kinds of paperwork. They want things moving there. I think that's one of the reasons why people are looking at Arizona as a place to invest.
Well, I'll tell you this: Arizona is extremely open to identifying best and highest use for development in their, if it's state-owned land, county, or city. But also, you're seeing a lot of organizations on the local end, kind of like, my organization, right? So we're not just thinking about a single asset development or a community development, but we're looking at finding out solutions as a national leader and using Arizona as a sandbox to test out a lot of our development here.
Yeah.
So, it's awesome.
Yeah, and your company, We Build Advisors, you're a full service opportunity zone business with everything. You do it all, right?
Yeah, so what we've done is we've identified, the legislation, the regulations, what other organizations have been doing what they believe is best practices, and we initially started with the advisory aspect of it, with identifying solutions and being creative within the space, but ever since some new development, and we're always getting new development every day, right? We're actually moving more towards holistic, venture development to where, instead of advising, we're going to just go ahead and be the doers, all the way from identifying the assets or the needs to, locking it up, preparing the plan, making sure it's in compliance, and then either selling it to a fund or now, this is actually kind of breaking news. We're going to be opening up our own fund as well, because I just recently got some pretty significant backers. So
that's great. Yeah, that's really nice. When you talk about advisory services, are you talking about advisory services to investors, developers, fund managers, government agencies, or just about everything?
So we call it stakeholders, right? Opportunities on stakeholders. We've met with various government officials, with special interest groups that own land, attorneys, CPAs. I mean, we were focused on the educational side, and naturally, because of my experiences in various business aspects like brick and mortar retail, right, or in real estate investments, we can look at these solutions in a unique way, and a lot of these organizations were very open to hearing what we had to say. So, yes.
So if somebody has a fund or wants to create a fund, they can come to you and say, I have this amount of money, I want to create a fund, I want to invest in your community or your state. Then you can help them to be sure the fund is compliant, that everything is copacetic about it, and then help them identify the project that is best suited for the location where they want to go, or determine the location itself. Is that right?
So you're very close. Before we have been shifting towards, full stack development. Yes, we would guide people towards the right answer. We don't do everything fully in-house. We try to collaborate with all of the various stakeholders in the industry. So if I know, X person wants to do X project, well, if we could do it in-house, great. If we don't believe we can, then we'll connect them to Y person. And so we know the local area very well, and we also know of other local stakeholders that are very good in their areas too, around the country. So we try to be a good facilitator.
So you work with the state as well to make sure that you're developing all of the opportunity zones the way that their vision is planned out?
So that's a good question, Vicki, and I'm actually really happy you brought that up, because right now a lot of real estate developers and real estate projects are really dominating this space right now, because it's almost like it's low-hanging fruit, right?
Right.
Yes. But the law was designed around business investment and business property, which is can constitute real estate. And so when real estate developers look at projects, they kind of look at it, from the lens of what they believe they need, right, based on the due diligence that they have done internally, versus with our methodology, because the law calls for impact, impact reporting and collection and just measuring impact. We actually start with the governments and with the community developers, like community development corporations or community development financial institutions. They have a lot of the research and the expertise in these low-income areas, so they most likely have an answer. But that doesn't mean that we're going to go with their answer. It just means that it's an accelerator point for us to validate their answer. And then we can go ahead and then look at, okay, that's what they say. This is what the data says. Let's go ahead and execute.
So do you concentrate, or have you done more projects that are business-oriented or residential-oriented?
So almost all of our projects have started either with the business idea and then identifying the highest and best use of where that business should operate, and then going to the real estate, project in itself, and luckily they've matched, right? We've found some abandoned buildings or some empty land. But I've also been approached with, property owners that want to sell their property, and they're like, hey, what's my highest and best use? And so, that it doesn't, I guess, yeah, you're right. It's been starting with business. I haven't really found much residential or, I guess, multifamily. It's been mainly, business. So.
Well, that's going to be the success of the program now. It's really come full circle. Like you said before, started off very real estate centric. Everything was talking about real estate. But now I think when people see that this program is going to work or not, it's really going to be determined whether or not their businesses are successful in there too, because the businesses are what makes it all thrive, gets people in there, and you can make a nice life for yourself. So, but regarding a point you just mentioned, you said that people are contacting you with that they have land to sell, or that do these people? I mean, how do they get in touch with you? These guys, do they just find out that hey, you know what, I got land and opportunities, I didn't even know it?
So thank God, that I have a good network in Arizona.
Nice.
We have a good network here, and we have access to information. Information. If I had a core competency, it's data collection and analytics. So we get information fast. We get information that is not public. So these landowners that approach us, or that we have been approaching directly, they're typically off market, and they want to move their properties. Because I mean, we're not talking about hundreds or a million or so for a property. A lot of these projects are in the multi-millions or even in the tens of millions of dollars. So when you're doing these type of transactions, it takes a certain expertise, and it still takes a little bit of white glove. But with technology, with our process, we believe that we can streamline it and still make it compliant.
So let me ask you a question out of curiosity. Does Arizona, has it designated opportunity zones in any of the tribal areas or reservations?
Absolutely, and we actually have the opportunity to work with a few tribal areas, with around Arizona. I mean, around Greater Phoenix. It's just with the pending regulations, it did make it pretty clear about how we can work with them. Now it's just a matter of who's going to take the first step. Everyone's trying to identify that, but yes, Arizona does have significant tribal areas and opportunity zones.
And do the tribes themselves, are they open to the idea of coming in and investing on their lands? That's kind of a unique subject in that Arizona has a lot of tribal area, and it's just interesting.
Yeah, and absolutely they are. I mean, I don't know if you guys or the audience has ever been to Arizona or understood where tribal land is, but if you know where Talking Stick Resort Casino is, or Wild Horse Pass, those are two significant casinos in the outer skirts of Phoenix or Scottsdale, right? All those areas are in tribal lands, and if you look at the businesses around them, those are in tribal lands. So we have use cases of tribal land development, just not with opportunity zones yet, but we're getting there.
But there is opportunity zones located within or around those areas that you can further develop.
So those two areas that I just mentioned, where Talking Stick is and with Wild Horse Pass, those are the number one and number 3 largest opportunity zones in Greater Phoenix.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So that's a significant opportunity.
Yeah. Well, let's shift gears a little bit here for a second. I want to talk about something that you put on your website the other day. It's on your site. It's called Arizona Approves Opportunity Zone Provision Conformity. What does that mean?
Yeah, and thank you for bringing up the website, webuildadvisors.com. But when we wrote that article, it was actually just more of a news post. Arizona just recently passed their budget May 31st. And in that budget, part of the provisions was matching the capital gain deferment to the federal government, legislation, right? So now investors don't have to pay the capital gains that they owe on the realized capital gain. And I'm not an attorney or a CPA. This is just from my understanding of what I read with the legislation that's public for everyone. but we can now, you won't have to pay the state capital gain tax.
That's excellent.
Versus other states like California, where you have to pay 13%, which is not a rack on California. They're trying to identify that too, of what they want to do to make sure that they get the matching with the government. But Arizona is very progressive in regards to getting the investments coming here and making it fair.
And that's important because sometimes people approach opportunity zones and with a single vision, and you have to understand what's going on in each location. If you want to invest outside of your comfort zone, outside of where you live, you need to know what kind of taxes there are at a state level, at a local level, what property taxes are involved, and I think it's the better communities are those that the government understands the concept and works with the investors to make it easy to invest in their opportunity zones, because each opportunity zone is competing with each opportunity zone. The more local, state and local incentives you offer, the more likely people are going to come to you, and the easier the process of even building the project once you get started in terms of getting permitting and going through the zoning and the planning and all of that at the strictly local level. The easier and more streamlined that is, the more people are going to come and invest with you.
Vicki, I think that you're absolutely right. I think that you're absolutely right. You hit it on the nose, and this is why individuals or organizations like you and I that are very local, that would understand the national aspect of it, why it's so important to work with these local stakeholders. Because, we are trying our best to develop relationships with these economic developers, with these city council members, and selling them the idea that these projects need to be streamlined and that they need to be approved, because we only have roughly, a max 6 months to make these commitments,
Right.
And so, you have to work with them. They have to have a clear idea of what's going on, not because they're trying to stop an investment from happening, but just because we can do better planning for the next investment and set precedents on how an opportunity zone investment can be done in the city and county level. On top of that, the city and county and state governments, they can release incentives based upon precedents. So if they see that something is working, then they can look at what was working with it best, what was not working with it, and then they can provide incentives and put the guardrails on, okay, we're going to give you this incentive, but this time I want you to put in solar panels, or I want you to put in this or that or whatever, right? That's why the federal government hasn't really put too many guardrails on the legislation from the federal side, because they kind of knew that the states and counties and local governments would put those guardrails in and provide extra incentives from that level.
Well, and everything is relative, because we're approaching the deadline now as to opportunity zone investments, and I believe at the federal level the idea was to put it out there and let people get their feet wet and see how it works. And the more local, state and local governments work with the idea of opportunity zones, and the more successful they are over this initial period of time, the more likely it is that the feds will expand the legislation and allow it to go forward so more people can be involved, because we're approaching the deadline to when you can invest.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the deadline, unfortunately, is a hard deadline, June 28th, and that affects the investors that have realized their gains in 2018, right? But, with the pending legislation and also, this weekend, I think everyone's gathering at a conference in D.C., Ben Carson and other, individuals. They might be talking about a possible extension of that deadline because of how new it is. But I wouldn't hold my breath, right? You have to plan for the worst. And, and if you just can't make it on this one, then you have to find what you can do for the next round, which is the end of one is December 31st of this year.
Right, and we know that Tim Scott has proposed new legislation that they're discussing in order to extend the program so that for another 10 years, which will allow it to expand further. And that in turn allows more development and the ability to actually have a bigger impact on the communities involved, just simply because there's more time, and also there's a history, because opportunity zones have no history of investment, and until you can generate something that people can see that it actually worked, the more likely they are to get more involved in the future.
Like I said, you haven't been wrong yet, Vicki. And I mean,
Vicki's nailed it
that's
today.
awesome.
She's on fire.
She is on fire. I got out of the heat, right? I didn't expect it to be in this room. So, this is the thing, right? By not having standards, or by not having these examples, yes, it is unfortunate, but it's also an opportunity for individuals and organizations like us to set examples and to set precedents and to really, influence legislation going forward. I do plan on writing a comment to the RFI that the Treasury released about data collection and impact reporting, right?
Right.
And I did get approved to go to the July 9th event in D.C. for the public hearing, right? So,
excellent.
That doing by having that ability to have a voice for someone who, I'm a millennial, right? I'm 29 years old. I'm young. I'm a millennial, and I wasn't in, I never imagined to be in this space, but because of the openness of it and the non-restrictions of coming into this space, you now have a voice of reason from a different generation going into this thing. And I'm not saying and also, but,
the world revolves around the risk takers. There's the people who recognize what's happening, see what the trend is, see what the benefits are, and are willing to take the risk to lead everyone else into the future. And especially as a millennial, you've put yourself into an outstanding position to go forward, because you're at the beginning of your life and career, as opposed to many already in the business who are seeing it, looking backwards instead of forward. So congratulations to you.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not even, and I thank you, I really appreciate that, but I just know, and I try to think about it from an industry perspective, everyone else involved and the success of this industry, because I do believe that this is one of the most powerful pieces of legislation in all of our lifetimes. I mean, this is a game changer, right?
Absolutely it is.
How can we safeguard this legislation during political, uncertainty, right? How can we make sure that we're doing good work and weeding out bad actors as a collective, right? From the community, not necessarily from the government. So, by having a new voice and a new way of, not a new way, but a different way of thinking, as me as an individual, coming in, I think that it'll just be good for the industry. And also, in 10 to 15 years, who do you think is going to buy all these assets?
That's right.
I mean, my generation's going to. So by having this, by being in there and just being present, I think is really good for our industry and also for our future generation.
Well, and it was strategic and brilliant for the president to create a program like this that puts the burden on developing the repressed communities around the country on the private sector, who actually knows what they're doing, as opposed to government who just, has the ideas and then throws it out to see what sticks. So it kind of guarantees the success of the project.
Totally, and that goes back to having this opportunity, right? We have an opportunity to just do something that is significant on a national level.
Correct. And actually have a lasting impact that, is going to disappear when somebody new goes into the government and then doesn't like the program and then it falls by the wayside. This way it actually gets established for the long run.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more.
Nice.
So, go ahead, Ron.
I have a question on the fund that you guys are developing, Jimmy, that you just mentioned earlier that you're starting. Is that did you have anything in particular that you like in that fund that you're looking for specifically, whether it be property or business or anything?
So yeah, this is kind of a breaking news. I've told maybe 3 or 4 people about this.
Yeah.
I got approached by a significant group. They recognized my knowledge in the space, the network, and what we're doing, and they are really interested in starting, helping me start a fund, and bringing their partners in to go ahead and look at investments in opportunity zones. So we are looking to create an opportunity fund, but we might also be creating other funds outside of opportunity zone spaces, but we'll still support opportunity zone development just without the requirements, right?
Yeah.
Be like an auxiliary fund. I'm sorry, I can't talk about an associated fund.
Yeah.
So my heart and passion was always for the business and making sure that we can support our entrepreneurs. Our mission is we're on a mission to help build developing areas to be the best entrepreneurial communities in the world. So we start with the entrepreneur or with the business, and the fund will start with the business, but it'll still look at the real estate, right?
Right.
It's almost like a hybrid of like a VC as well as a real estate development fund. We wanna find a good mixture of both, and Arizona is the prime place to start something like that, because we don't really have many VC firms here, right? We have a lot of real estate money, but not much money allocated towards startups or towards companies that are looking to grow here in Arizona.
Yeah, and you have a lot of real estate too. Arizona is huge. In case you people out there don't realize, Arizona is a huge state. It's really pretty too. It's a really nice state. One other thing before we kind of wrap this up, you want to tell us about this Opportunity Zone of America organization? I believe you're associated with. Yeah.
So Opportunity Zone Association of America was founded in 2018 by Aaron Grau and Kyle Walker and a few others, and they were the first association representing the Opportunity Zone industry in the United States. They're based out of DC. They have expertise in lobbying for our industry, and they're just a very powerful and they're a community advocacy group for our industry. They are very strategic with their growth. They're not just trying to make a quick buck because of the hype. They truly care about safeguarding this industry for years to come, and they've strategically partnered with various law firms, development companies, technology companies to identify best practices, the right data to collect, and a voice of reason to various stakeholders in the federal government or in various local governments around the United States. And I was, blessed to get the position of Director of Communications for the organization.
Oh, nice.
I reached out to them last year to talk to them about working with each other, and they were in a different space last year than now. I think everyone was in this industry, right?
Right. Yeah.
But now that I'm working with them as part of their staff, I go ahead and help them with their event coming up August 7th in Pittsburgh. It's going to be it's the Opportunity Zone Catalyst Roadshow event, and it's going to be centered around local development in Pittsburgh, but a few organizations are coming from Erie, from D.C., Philadelphia that are going to be there, and it should be a great event. I mean, and the next event hopefully can be in Phoenix, if I can get enough local support here to get that going.
Yeah, that way you can roll out of bed and get there. So, this sounds like a monster of an organization. You know what? We should do a whole podcast on this. One of these days, hopefully we'll get you, and maybe we can do a follow-up podcast just on that group, because it sounds really interesting, and it sounds like people in the opportunity zones industry must really have to know that this thing is out there. So I think that's important.
Yeah, and their website is ozaa.org, and they're very organized. They're measured. They are very strategic with how to fully advocate for this industry. And like I said, I'm very thankful to be with them. And it's just, I believe that the future is going to be, they're going to help build the future of the industry.
Yeah. And what about you? What about you, Jimmy? How do people get a hold of you in case they want to talk to you? They're listening to the podcast. They're interested. They want more information. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure. You can go to my website, webuildadvisors.com, or you can email me at jimmy@webuildadvisors.com. I'm easily accessible. I do this full time. I don't really have a work-life balance because I don't have kids or I don't have a wife. But it's right. But
you also
I'm all in with this. So and
you also have low blood pressure, right?
After people listen to this podcast, Jimmy, you may get some proposals.
Oh my gosh, no, I'm happily,
that's great.
For you, baby. No, I'm just kidding. No, we're all in. I'm all in with this, and I truly want to be fiduciary to not only my local communities that need help, but also to the industry that needs a lot of help. So that's why I do.
Yeah, it's carving out the future.
Getting in at the beginning and creating the industry, that's where it's all about.
That's right.
All right. This is cool. Another great podcast. Jimmy, thanks so much for your time and coming on the show. I really appreciate the information. I really like what's going on here.
Ron, thank you so much. Ron, Vicki, you guys are great. I mean, I'm really happy that you gave me the opportunity. I'm extremely thankful. And I know that if we stay in communication and we work together, not just us three, but everyone that's listening to this, we have to work together for the best benefit of our community because we are all leaders. Right now, I've been talking to companies. There's maybe hundreds of different funds, but we're talking in like the 100, 200, maybe 300. The future does not look like that. The future looks more like thousands, tens of thousands of stakeholders. Right now, we are all leaders. We have to be leaders in this space and set precedents and set a standard. We can
Perfectly all do it said. Because without the leaders to bring everybody else, there's nothing.
That's right. So we have to all step up, work together, and lead the way. If we don't, then someone else will.
That's right. And
yeah,
then it won't be as good.
Yep.
They won't do it as well as we do, right,
that's
Jimmy?
Right.
Right.
Exactly. All right. Well, Jimmy Flores, thank you so much. Vicki, thank you for co-hosting the show with me today. And everyone out there, you're listening to the MappableUSA.com podcast at MappableUSA.com. Go over there, scroll down. You'll see a list of all our syndication sources. You pick the one you like the best and subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming episode. If you want to be a guest on the show like Jimmy was today, there's a guest tab. You fill that out. We'll see what we can do about getting you on the show. So we appreciate you listening. We appreciate your subscribing. We appreciate your feedback. We appreciate your support. And we'll see you next time on another Mappable USA podcast. Have a great week.